Coming up, global business. The Caixin Services PMI hits the lowest point since December 2022 in August, but remains in expansion zone. The 2023 China International Fair for Trade in Services is in full swing in Beijing. Today, we explore the services trade between China and Africa. We continue to commemorate 10 years of the Belt and Road Initiative. Our reporters travel to Pakistan and Kazakhstan to see how the initiative is boosting cooperation. Hello and welcome to this edition of Global Business on CGTN. I'm Guan Xing. And first up in the program, a private sector survey shows that China's services activity expanded at the slowest pace in 8 months in August. The Caixin Services Purchasing Managers Index dropped to 51.8 in August from 54.1 in July, the lowest reading since December. Analysts say declining export orders and rising costs of raw materials, labor, and fuel are some of the main reasons for the slower expansion. But activity is still in an expansionary territory. The 50-point mark separates expansion from contraction. Existing orders and companies' plans to expand capacity are supporting an increase in employment. Employment in services sector has been in expansion territory for 7 consecutive months. And China's top economic planner is establishing a fresh department aimed at bolstering the nation's private enterprises. The National Development and Reform Commission, in an announcement on Monday, reviewed its intention to form a bureau dedicated to the development of the private economy. And this bureau will have the dual role of monitoring industry conditions and orchestrating the formulation of supportive policies. Supporting the private sector has long been a paramount objective for the Chinese government due to its significant contribution to job creation and accounting for over half of the country's fixed asset investments. Officials have also indicated that this new bureau will serve as a conduit for engaging with private companies, addressing major challenges, and enhancing their global competitiveness. And now for more discussions on China's private economy, we're joined by Chu Qiang, a research fellow at the Beijing Foreign Studies University. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Chu. So the National Development and Reform Commission recently reviewed its intention to establish the Bureau for the Development of the Private Economy. But what is the significance of this for the development of China's private sector?
Well, I'm not sure our audience will understand Chinese system of the policy making and the policy action. Let's just take an analogy. Well, in America, similarly in China as well, usually for all kinds of the private sectors, their demand, their need, or their opinions need to be collected by the association of their industry or the chamber of commerce of their own industry. And then the Chamber of Commerce or the Association of Businesses will going through a very long-lasting lobbyist process to feed back to their opinion to the government, to the policy-making process, and then get the answers, and then form into the actions and form into the laws and regulations. It's a quite long process. In China as well, we have the similar systems as in the past. We need to go through all this association and then feedback to the government. So it's not that answering very quickly. So in order to boost the private sector, Chinese government decided that we need to form a direct government department to respond to the acute demand of the private sector. NDRC, if you are familiar with Chinese policy-making process, you will know that it's one of the most important player in the policy-making process. And itself, directly forming such an organization, it shows that the government of China have the dedication and the resolution to directly collect opinion from the private sector, answer to their demand, and directly serve their acute issues. So I think this is a great improvement right now. So you don't need to go through the long-lasting lobbyist system and don't need to wait for a long time for the response. So immediately, I think their opinion will see the policy responding.
I would certainly hope so. And the latest Caixin Services PMI data shows continued expansion in China's services sector, but at a slower pace. And combining this with the developments from the CFTIS, what are your views on the key highlights and trends in China's services industry?
Well, yes, actually, number one, I think this statistic has some lagging behind effect. Well, in July, actually, or in early of August, we do have very complicated economic atmosphere. For example, global trade and outside demand can be an issue to China right now. If I take a look at the numbers in Germany and Indonesia, Vietnam and France, they're all showing us some potential problems. That's the reason why China as a world factory of the world are having some challenges right now. But also, if you take a look at the other factor, domestic market of China, I have done some field investigation myself. I walked around several cities in China, from the first tier to third tier, and also in many different industries and services. I find out that lots of the business buildings right now, the empty shops are now being filled, and also the parking lot has been full. Hotels, hospitals, and hotels and restaurants, and also the railways and flight tickets are very on heat. So I'm thinking right now domestic demand is really on heat, and the domestic market has been revived. So even though we have some challenges, but I think still Chinese economy is resilient. And also, if you take a look at the rent also are backing to the highest point before the pandemic right now in many of the first-tier cities.
And the domestic demand is back, but the soft external demand is also a factor dragging on the services sector. And at the policy front, what more can be done to further facilitate the development of China's services industry, especially for the private enterprises?
Well, I've talked to many of the information sources in the central government and also the local government. When we do the investigations, we find out that there are more of the policies in the pocket of the government continue to come out. For example, the upgrading of the urban shantytown is going to be there, and it's going to boost lots of the property market demand as well. For example, also in the mortgage system right now, everybody probably heard the news that the new mortgage policy has been issued already, and immediately we've been seeing the expectation has been reversed in the big cities, for example, like in Beijing, in Shanghai, in Chengdu, and as well as some very developed second-tier cities. And also, according to my knowledge, many other policies are going to come out to boost employment, to boost graduate students, to boost the between jobs people, and also to support the families with more children in their consumptions. So I'm very confident we're going to see more of this series of problems to come out in the second half, or especially in the Q4 of this year.
Well, thank you very much for your insights. That was Zhu Qiang, a research fellow at the Beijing Foreign Studies University. And now let's turn to the 2023 China International Fair for Trade and Services. Today is the fourth day of the global event. We take a look at China's deepening services trade ties with Africa. A recent report released by the official think tank under the Chinese Commerce Ministry suggests stable development in bilateral services trade. Main areas of cooperation include transportation, construction, travel services, government services, telecoms, computer and information services. In the meantime, the report also notes of a relatively large room for cooperation in the digital economy, network communication, culture tourism, financial services, and environmental protection. And now for more discussions on China-Africa service trade connections, let's cross to Ramanyan in Nairobi. Hi there, Rama, good to see you. So could you update us on the present condition of bilateral trade exchanges between China and African nations, particularly in the realms of communication, technology, and aviation?
Yeah, totally. So remember, this is a two-way trade relationship worth over $280 billion at least last year, up around 12% on a year-on-year basis. In the first 5 months of this year, in fact, we're looking at growth of around 16% at around $113 billion of two-way trade, according to data from China's Customs Administration. But it's also a trade relationship that's very heavily dominated by commodities. The biggest exporters to China are South Africa, Angola, and the DRC. And commodities is a common thread among all those three. And with the price of oil going up around 25% compared to January 2022 to date, that partly explains the sort of uplift that we're seeing there. But away from commodities, trade in the other direction, you've got Chinese companies like Transsion Holdings that have made very aggressive inroads into the budget and the mid-range market for smartphones across many African economies, with brands like Tecno, Infinix, and the accessories brand Oraimo. And an interesting situation here is that they're in direct competition from another Chinese company, BBK Electronics, that's behind the Vivo and the Oppo phone brand. So if you're looking for two-way trade in bulk, these firms have pretty strong household brand name recognition. In aviation, we see a fair bit of project finance going into airport upgrades, often state-funded, but airline fleets across Africa, largely still from three main companies, Boeing, Airbus, and the Brazilian company Embraer. So far, there's nothing here from Cormac.
Well, while we understand the trade in tangible goods has rebounded post-pandemic, could you shed light on the state of affairs regarding the trade in services between the two regions?
Indeed. So the interesting bit about trade in this particular part of the world is that it's still limited specifically to goods, at least as far as the Sino-African trade relationship is concerned. It's fairly rare. It's more of the exception to see a Chinese company that has made deep inroads into African markets, especially as far as services are concerned. But that's not to say that there aren't any. So, for example, Huawei, right? It's got significant market share among telecommunication companies here, providing the cellular radios that they rely on for calls, data, and mobile money. One of the largest banking groups on the continent, Standard Bank, 20% of it is owned by China's biggest bank, ICBC. But ever since that deal was wrapped up in 2007, there really hasn't been a comparable deal of that sort of size, much less a move into the professional services space on a comparable scale. Now, whether that's because Chinese firms don't see an opportunity across a different set of markets of comprising of about 1.2 billion people, but still this is in 50 different countries plus, or if it's simply a case of, there simply isn't appetite for expansion in the African market, that's a bit unclear. But away from professional services, you've got to talk about things like ByteDance owns TikTok. It's growing relatively fast across the continent, has at least 9 million users in South Africa, according to a 2021 study, and an estimated market share of about 32% in Africa's most populous country, that's Nigeria. So compare that to an estimated 20 million users in Meta-owned WhatsApp and Facebook in South Africa, and that gives you a relative sense of market share there. Another company to keep close eyes on, StarTimes. It's been operating in African markets since 2008 in the satellite and digital terrestrial market segments, roughly 40 million users for that particular company. And it's set up an interesting three-way race for market share against competing companies. Naspers owned MultiChoice, which is entirely African, and the French company Canal+. So the services space is relatively small in context, but it is growing.
Indeed, it seems a lot of tech companies are making significant inroads. Well, thank you so much, Ramanyang, live for us in Nairobi. At this year's China International Fair for Trading Services, the focus is on green and low carbon initiatives, bringing together a multitude of Chinese and international enterprises to exhibit the latest advancements and technological applications in global environmental services. Our Olivia He has more.
This year's CIFTIS emphasizes green concepts across all exhibition themes, with a particular spotlight on the environmental services exhibition. Here, various companies unveil innovative low-carbon technologies and solutions. Now let's take a look at a replica of Beijing Chaoyang Circular Economy Industrial Park. This facility is equipped to handle household waste, kitchen waste, construction waste, and more, with a capacity of over 10,000 tons of waste per day, while maintaining nearly zero carbon emissions.
This industrial park processes waste from various sources, such as home and restaurants, converting household waste into green electricity through incineration. Moreover, they recycle food waste, transforming it into renewable energy biodiesel.
Pima explains that electricity generated from waste contributes approximately 500 million gigawatt-hours of green electricity annually, catering to the electricity needs of nearly 1 million people. Moving on to another fascinating exhibit, a bamboo winding composite pipe has captured the attention of many visitors. Well, it may seem like an ordinary pipe at first glance, but this one is actually made from bamboo using a special winding technique.
Bamboo offers several advantages, including an extended lifespan of up to 50 years, making it a cost-effective and low-carbon choice. As a result, this technology is now widely utilized in pipeline projects across various Chinese cities.
In recent years, the global trade of services has witnessed a growing trend towards green development. According to data from UNCTAD and OECD, in 2010, green service trade exports accounted for 56% of total service trade exports, increasing to 62% by 2018. This points to significant potential of rapid growth in the green service sector. Olivia He, CGTN, Beijing.
The newly planned Shenzhen-Hong Kong Science and Technology Zone aims to boost technological and institutional innovation, promote the sharing of resources, and attract top talents from around the world. And that's the key message from a news conference held in Beijing on Tuesday, as Chinese officials provided details on the cooperation zone jointly developed by Southern Tech Hub Shenzhen and Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. According to the plan, the Shenzhen section of the Hetao Zone for Science and Technology Innovation Cooperation will coordinate development with the section in Hong Kong. Officials say this will transform the cooperation zone into a major engine for the high-quality development of the Guangdong-Hong Kong-Macau Greater Bay Area.
打造汇聚全球智慧的科技合作平台。
The plan aims to create a scientific and technological cooperation platform that brings together global wisdom, deepens international exchanges and cooperation, builds an international innovation talent port, improves all-round scientific research services, and creates an international and high-quality scientific research and living community.
Moving on to some other business headlines from China that we're tracking at this hour. A signing ceremony was held this morning in Beijing for the Beijing Convention on the Judicial Sale of Ships. This convention ensures legal clarity regarding the ship's title for international navigation. It aims to maximize the ship's market value and proceeds available for creditors while promoting global trade. And China has set ambitious targets for its electronic information manufacturing in the coming year. These goals include achieving more than 85% share of the global 5G cell phone production market and capturing 25% of the global market for color TVs larger than 75 inches. And China's futures market experienced robust double-digit growth in August with particular strength in energy, precious metals, black building materials, fresh food, and livestock feed. And now we're heading for a short break. Still to come on the program. We continue to commemorate 10 years of the Belt and Road Initiative. Our reporters travel to Pakistan and Kazakhstan to see how the initiative is boosting cooperation.
We're stepping out of the studio to take you on a brand new journey along the Belt and Road.
We travel to over 20 countries on 5 continents. Follow our cameras to all the interesting places, major cities, remote corners.
And so many more, we document not only massive infrastructures,
but also cultural links that bound the community with a shared future.
We invite you on the new Silk Road as we mark 10 years of the Belt and Road Initiative.
Welcome back. Chinese Premier Li Qiang has arrived in Jakarta to attend the East Asian leaders' meetings and to make an official visit to Indonesia. This marks his first visit to an Asian country since becoming premier. Li Qiang emphasized China's support for ASEAN's central role in regional cooperation and expressed willingness to engage in discussions on key regional issues. He will be participating in several high-level meetings, including the 26th China-ASEAN Leaders Meeting, the 26th ASEAN plus China, Japan, and South Korea Leaders Meeting, and 18th East Asia Summit. The Association of Southeast Nations is playing an important role in boosting the global economy. The International Monetary Fund anticipates a robust growth rate of 4.5% for ASEAN this year and the next. In the world's 5th largest economy, ASEAN nations now account for 10% of the global GDP, and that is more than double their previous weight in the global economy. And these impressive figures can be attributed in part to the region's expanding market and strengthened cooperation. Furthermore, the competitive labor costs in ASEAN region have made it an attractive destination for foreign direct investment. Many multinational corporations have established production facilities in these countries, boosting local manufacturing and enhancing global supply chains. It's been 10 years since the Belt and Road Initiative was first put forward. Over the past decade, 152 countries and 32 international organizations have signed up to the initiative. And CGTN's reporters have traveled to 22 Belt and Road nations across Asia, Africa, Europe, and Latin America to uncover stories of collaboration, transformation, and people-to-people exchanges under the framework. Setting out from the Humboldt Jarrah Pass, straddling the China-Pakistan border, a team is on a trip westward to Pakistan, Turkey, Greece, and Tanzania. Today, we meet the former caretaker of the Georgia Chinese Memorial Cemetery in Pakistan, the resting place for Chinese workers who died during the building of the Karakoram Highway through the 1960s and 70s. And Cao Shufeng reports.
For 45 years, almost every morning, Ali Ahmed arrived to work at the Gilgit Chinese Memorial Cemetery. And it's a routine that continues even though he's already retired.
This is not just a memorial, but a symbol of friendship between two countries. And because of this love, I've dedicated my whole life to looking after this graveyard.
The Karakoram Highway is being built together by China and Pakistan. It passes through the Karakoram mountain range and has a maximum elevation of around 4,800 meters. Due to its height and the difficult terrain, many workers and engineers have lost their lives since the project first started decades ago.
It's estimated around 700 Chinese and Pakistanis have sacrificed their lives helping build the Karakoram Road, and 88 Chinese are being commemorated in this cemetery. But we do see some empty spaces here. That's because the remains of some victims haven't been recovered.
So, do you remember the first day when the cemetery opened? What happened on that day?
On April the 4th, 1978, 54 bodies were brought here. They were all buried in one day. And since then, now every April the 4th, the Chinese ambassador comes for a memorial.
Ahmed's job was passed down to his son after he was retired. They invited us to their home, where Ahmed showed me the Friendship Award that was handed to him by Chinese President Xi Jinping himself.
I also want to receive awards like my father, and also get the respect he receives from people. That's why I work very hard at the graveyard, with a lot of dedication.
The Karakoram Highway has been dubbed Friendship Road in China and Pakistan, and it's many ordinary people like Ahmed who have dedicated their lives and labor to strengthening the relationship over the decades. Cao Shufeng, CGTN, Gilgit.
Kazakhstan was one of the first countries to join the Belt and Road Initiative. Under the framework, China and Kazakhstan have been cooperating across the huge range of fields. And Gao An reports.
With a population of almost 20 million people, Kazakhstan is located in Central Asia and borders Russia, Uzbekistan, China, and several other countries. Under the framework of the Belt and Road Initiative, China and Kazakhstan have boosted cooperation in the areas of connectivity, production, economy and trade, people-to-people and cultural exchanges. The two countries have developed the road and railway as well as international land-to-sea transportation links. According to official data, railway cargo volume between China and Kazakhstan amounted to 23 million tons in 2022, up 20% year-on-year. Official data also shows that both countries have formed a list of over 50 projects, with a total value worth over $21 billion in production capacity and investment cooperation. And China is now Kazakhstan's second biggest trading partner, its biggest export destination, and its second largest source of imports. According to the General Administration of Customs of China, the total volume of trade in goods between China and Kazakhstan stood at over $31 billion in 2022, up more than 23% from the previous years. Cooperation is also expanding into the green, digital, scientific, and technological fields, with renewable energy programs such as wind farms and hydropower plants helping Kazakhstan shift to green and low-carbon development. Gang, CGTN.
Shymkent, the third largest city in Kazakhstan, had thrived as a pearl along the modern Silk Road thanks to the concerted efforts of China and Kazakhstan. The two countries have achieved remarkable progress in upgrading a local oil factory into a modern and environmental-friendly refinery, making it a model of the Belt and Road cooperation. And Huang Yue has a story.
Murat is the director of the third workshop of the Petro-Kazakhstan oil products, a core workshop that acts as the control center of the main installations of the factory.
You can see from the screen that the temperature of the reactor has reached 649 degrees. I told my colleague that the temperature needs to be lowered by 4 degrees.
Growing up in the village near the factory, Murat says he has dreamed of working here since he was young, especially when he herded his cattle and looked up at the giant chimneys. Originally built in the 1970s, the factory failed to produce high-quality oil due to backward manufacturing techniques and old equipment. Therefore, in 2014, the revamp and modernization project officially began with the support of China National Petroleum Corporation, which holds a 50% stake in Petro-Kazakhstan oil products. In 2018, the upgrade project was completed, and the company has continuously produced qualified products since then. Now, over 40% of oil products in Kazakhstan are from this refinery.
Before the upgrade project, the refinery's oil processing capacity was about 5.5 million tons per year, and now it's 6 million tons. The light oil product field has also been improved from 50% to 80%.
Last year, we processed 6.2 million tons of oil, which is a record for the whole Kazakhstan ever, a huge contribution in providing petroleum products to Kazakhstan, ensuring the energy security.
While walking through the factory, the refinery appears quite different from my initial expectations. Instead of chimneys releasing black smoke into the air, we can actually see green, lush trees along the roads and even birds flying overhead. And actually, I was told that the factory received several awards from the President of Kazakhstan for safety and environmental protection.
Take a look at this. This is sulfur we reclaimed from oil refining. In order to deal with the sulfur contained in crude oil, we've designed a sulfur reclaim device. It can produce 15,000 tons of sulfur every year, greatly reducing the emission of sulfur dioxide.
From an old oil plant to an advanced environmental-friendly refinery, the company has also created more jobs for locals. The China-Kazakhstan joint venture has about 20 Chinese employees, and more than 1,800 employees are from Kazakhstan, many of whom are just like Murat and have realized their dreams. Huang Yue, CGTN, Shymkent, Kazakhstan.
And that will do it for this edition of Global Business here on CGTN. Thank you for being with us. Until next time, bye for now.